Hello, and today we'll be playing NeveN. We only started chapter 5 for a cat last time, so this time we're going to be covering Maelbjorn. This update just came out yesterday, so I'm not going to cover everything in this chapter, in this part from Maelbjorn, because many of the stuff in this new update y'all already saw in the cat video for chapter 5, so I'm just going to go cover the new stuff. The stuff about Maelbjorn. In the part where we meet Tess, as well as a part where the kings and Eric and everybody else go over the continent and the other avatars. Those parts we skipped. No time to get all dolled up. Danger is imminent. I must find Maelbjorn. As I make my way through the corridors of the castle, I forget a detail that I am very quickly reminded of when I catch sight of them. The guards are going to ask me questions, yet they're already coming towards me with their hands on their grips of their swords. I put on my best singing voice to start chanting a few words that come to mind in this chaotic moment. Get the fuck out of my way. I won't suffer any delay. With that, I activate my brand and aim at their armor to immobilize them in place. When I emerge in the royal ring, I come face to face with Gilead, who is calmly seated in a chair in front of the entrance to the prince's office. He questions me with a stare before one of the guards bursts in just behind me, weapon in hand. Easy there, what's going on? He's dangerous. He uses brand against us. I really don't have time for this. I need to speak to the prince immediately. Our kingdom is in danger. The captain winces as he glares at me, but obviously decides to believe me as he opens the door to invite me in. I'm surprised the prince isn't sleeping, even more surprised to see him working as usual. When he looks up, the bear flinches before rubbing his eyes. Something tells me he's also sleep deprived. What are you doing up at this hour? I really want to ask him the same question, but now is not the time. I'm in trouble, and so is Frostfang. Maelbjorn blinks as he takes a perplexed look at me. Where am I supposed to start? This whole situation makes no sense. There are others like me, others unique brands. They call them avatars, and even the avatars of Tess and Manasa are out there. They exist. One with the brand of Tess visited us all during some kind of dream. A dream? It was a dream, but real? I was aware of what I was doing and what I was saying, and Tanakh was there too. He'll be able to testify to what happened. I'm sure of it. The Avatar test said that if one of us killed another Avatar, they would gain power. Some of them are coming for us. It's only then that I realize my voice is shaking, then my whole body flows. We should get some rest. I'll take care of alerting the kings. We'll probably need to have an emergency council meeting tomorrow. As the bear ponders what to do, a whole host of emotions take hold of me as I momentarily snap out of the torpor still gripping my body. And eventually I tell Maelbjorn how I feel, very deeply. Why does all this shit keep happening to me? Incomprehension, fear, and anger mingle with me, and I feel as if I'm going to collapse under the weight of these feelings. but the prince takes me in his arms, and for a moment I forget everything as I embrace him back. Are you sure you want me? I could be a danger to Frostfang, to everything your family has built. I won't choose between you and my kingdom. On the contrary, I fully intend to have you both. I could simply run away from here and no longer be a problem. Always trying to run away, always trying to escape your problems. It's almost instinctive with you. You're safe here. I'll make sure nothing happens to you, and if they try anything, they'll pay with their lives. There's something in the prince's deep voice that reassures me, a kind of determination of self-assurance that I have never known in my life. Even the cold steel of his armor is strangely soothing. He is my steel fortress in the middle of an ocean that seems to be getting smaller every day. The ceaseless waves of anguish that sees me crash against his unbreakable walls. And finally, when I find the strength, I detach myself from him while taking his hands in mine. Thank you for being there for me. We're here for each other. I simply holding up my end of the bargain. He smiles at me, and I can't help but smile back before settling into a chair. I'm not sure who would be able to come here, but Lastro's avatar was clearly up for it. I'm sure Aeon will be delighted to know he has an equal to fight should he ever come here. Do you have any other information that might help us? I see most of them look harmless, but maybe they're hiding it well. Some of them were younger than me still, and there was an animal, a ferret to be more precise. The bear pricks up his ears and stares at me as if he misheard me. Yeah, I know it's weird. A lot of it didn't make sense, even considering that it was a dream. And then there's this pirate on our coast who's an avatar too. I don't know how dangerous he is to Frostfang, given that he's a pirate. Well, we have information about a captain who's been leading raids on coastal towns for a few weeks, but he's attacking a lord who isn't entirely loyal to us, so Maelbjorn shrugs with a grimace on his face. As long as he helps the kingdom, even if unwittingly, I suppose that's fine with us. I know that's somewhat cynical, but yes. Otherwise, I don't know much more about the others. Most of them seem to be out of the country. Some are Macadian, others are probably Khazarian, given that they are reptiles. We'll go over it in detail once you're rested. Anyway, I'll deal with the more urgent matters. Your safety must be guaranteed. I don't think I'm going to sleep much tonight. Do you mind if I stay here? No. On the contrary, I'd like you to stay. And I was well on my way to pulling an all-nighter too anyway. He smiles at me again before calmly returning to his papers as if nothing had happened. I admire his composure, but I have absolutely no idea how he manages to keep it in these circumstances. As I brood in the corner of the room, something occurs to me. Maybe if I talk about something lighter, it will help us both. By the way, I was wondering, why did you change your mind about us? What do you mean? You were afraid I wasn't serious enough in our relationship. That's what made you hesitate, isn't it? Maelbjorn lets out a small laugh as he pulls out plans of the castle in front of him. Well, I know how much all things musical mean to you. I know that poem was heartfelt, and you happened to declare it at the exact moment I needed it. You found the vulnerability in my armor, just so to speak. He looks up from his paperwork for a moment to wink at me. So I think that you want something serious. Well, at least I trust you to make it so, just as you trusted me by opening up to me. I didn't think anyone could analyze an early relationship so much, or I suppose it shouldn't surprise me coming from the prince. He seems to be calculating in everything he does, even the most trivial affairs. I suppose that's what makes him so sure of himself. I guess there's nothing like a fight to the death between avatars, and between avatars to solidify a relationship. I know it's a bit dark, even for Maelbjorn, but I need to lighten things up. It's my way of staying sane. I'm sure that won't happen. No one would dare attack Frostfang. We are feared by whole nations. I know it's painful to hear, but an entire diplomatic caravan was decimated right in our territory, so you can understand why I have some doubts about my safety. Now bear not silently, there was his eyes. To tell you the truth, our suspicions have grown stronger about the person behind this crime. He pauses, seeming reluctant to say more. But it's in our best interest to drag this out. Why? Because we don't have enough allies, and this will only make the situation worse, especially if this person resides within these walls. And imagine the reason he's avoiding saying a name is that it must remain secret for the time being. Or maybe it implies it's someone close to him. Come to think of it, there are very few ideal culprits. My guess is right. I only know of two people who have a close connection to Maelbjorn, apart from his adopted fathers, Gilliant and Simi. And Captain doesn't exactly strike me as a type to betray, especially as he spends most of his time with royalty. Simi, on the other hand, has all the tools in hand for treason. It would be almost too easy for her to set up an operation like this with her intelligence and spies. Do I have to be particularly careful about who I talk to and what I say to them? No, on the contrary, I think it would be wiser not to change any of your habits, just so as not to alert our enemies. If there are any links that could substantiate our fears, or on the contrary render them null and void. And my suspicions are right, I doubt anyone could be more informed than Simi anyway. But all this thinking at this hour dulls my mind. Gradually, without even realizing it, I fall into a deep sleep, away from the stress generated by this whole avatar thing. When I wake up, Maelbjorn's gone, but there's a note on the table in front of me. I blink and concentrate on reading it properly. Council in the morning will come for you if not awake. As I look out, I realize that it is already morning, and I hope with all of my heart that I have time to wash up a bit. Unfortunately, as soon as I look up, the prince enters the room. I hope you had a good night. These chairs are not the pinnacle of comfort. As I stand up, I feel a twinge come over me, and I let out a grunt of discomfort. You weren't kidding. Me kidding? The prince grins at this mere early morning quip already manages to put me in a better mood. Come on, follow me. They're waiting for us. I stick to the bed as much as I can while he walks quickly through the corridors. Who will be there, and what will it be about? The kings, Tanakh, Gilliant, and Simi. No one else. We're going to talk about the danger posed by the avatars. I brief my fathers. The others will learn about it depending on what they decide to tell them. So it's a small council. I must admit that I like it that way. At this pace, we reach the council's doors in no time. Suddenly, I'm under the intense stress as the memories of my previous council meeting come flooding back. It wasn't the most pleasant moment of my life, but eventually I suppose it didn't go too badly. Come on, Eric, take a breath, get your thoughts under control again, and off we go. As Maelbjorn enters the room, Tanakh comes around the bend in the hallway, which stops me mid-stride. As soon as our eyes meet, without even a word being spoken, I understand that he has seen the same thing I have. What is it? What was that? Perhaps the first time I've seen the ambassador take the situation seriously, not a smile or even a joking remark from him. A warning, I think. We're going to have a chat about it anyway. He then pulls me into the room and announces the members present. Simmy smiles at me, but the kings of Gilead have a more serious look on their faces. I imagine that soon everyone will share that expression. Once we are settled, Aeon rises and speaks. Good. Now that we're all here, I can tell you what we're discussing today. We're going to talk about... Simmy stands up as well and raises her voice for all to hear, interrupting the king. All eyes then turn to her, and it's clear that the occasion is rare just by seeing their reaction. I'd like to announce something important first. I hope it's very significant given the urgency of the situation. Go on. I'd like to declare myself guilty of the attack on McCann's diplomat caravan. It feels as if the breath of everyone in the room, including my own, suddenly stops. I had my doubts, and so probably did the other members present, but no one expected such a straightforward announcement. Even Tanakh, who is usually so relaxed, has straightened up in his chair and seems to be devouring every bit of information avidly. Explain yourself, Simmy. I have no intention to do so. I can only tell you that I orchestrated this attack, and knowing that you were close to finding out, I prefer to take the initiative in order to avoid a public embarrassment. No one dares say anything for a moment, as if we're all trying to come to terms with what this might all mean. But eventually, Lust's confident voice echoes through the room. In that case, Gilead, proceed to arrest her. The captain, who had remained silent until then, steps towards the fennec, who does not resist. She even holds out her hands as a feline handcuffs her, then offers me a brief smile before being escorted from the room. This is strange. I don't know how to react to this. I also feel sad, but somewhere in my mind, a thought is tugging at me, like there's something wrong with this whole betrayal. It's all too sudden, too easy. I glance in Maelbjorn's direction, as he seems just as pensive as I am. I still feel sad, but somewhere in my mind, a thought is tugging at me, like there's something wrong with this whole betrayal thing. It's all too sudden, too easy. I glance in Maelbjorn's direction, and he seems just as pensive as I am. Okay, so it's gone. I've only just realized that Gilead was following us. I don't even know why it still surprises me. I have a feeling it might be difficult to get some alone time with the prince. All I can hope for is that the bodyguard doesn't let his ears hang around too much, and I imagine Maelbjorn trusts him in that respect too. Once we're both settled, the bear seems to lose himself in a long contemplation before rubbing his eyes. I don't think Simmy did what she turned herself in for. I think for a moment about what he just said as I try to analyze the situation. I don't understand. How do you reach that conclusion? First, because he would have no interest in revealing this at the moment she did. And secondly, because if she was a traitor, we'd all be dead by now, given the information she has. Our enemies underestimated the trust we place in her. The feeling that I have been left in the dark about the situation is starting to annoy me now. It's starting to annoy me greatly, but I'm doing my best not to show it. But what caused all this to happen? An object for the McCann caravan was found in Simmy's room. Wait, is this seriously being taken as evidence of? It's cruel, I know, but even something that obvious is enough for the Mercadians to demand that head's roll. Whoever did this is looking to put pressure on us, and I suppose our mutual friend was merely trying to buy us a bit of time. So what, you lock her up when you know as well as Simmy that she's innocent? The bear sighs heavily as he seems to search for his words. Imagine ourselves on a chessboard You played chess before, haven't you? Let's say I've seen people play it. Right, well, Simi is a pawn, and she's decided to sacrifice herself, but it's only to open up other opportunities. Now it's up to us to take down a key piece of the opponent. The metaphor would work better if Simi wasn't as important as you say. Right now, we've lost a rook instead, or even a queen. I'm rather proud to be able to demonstrate the little chess knowledge I have. It's a bit more within my grasp than politics. But we haven't really lost her either. Simi only sacrificed her public persona, and that's where you come in. And Blake's eyes straighten up in the chair. Something tells me this story is going to lead me somewhere I don't want to be again. Me? What do you want me to do? Well, we're going to be busy preparing our defenses during the day in case one of the avatars comes here, so I'd like to ask you a favor. You'll have to contact Simi. Here I am, again, abroad in something potentially dangerous. Why me? You have lots of agents who are probably less closely watched than me. The vast majority of our agents are the spies who are under Simi's command. You can imagine that they're all being monitored by the Royal Guard. Besides, if we let those she fully trusts anywhere near her cell, it'll make it all too obvious that she's not really locked up. So she doesn't trust me? Well, let's just say that her job requires a healthy distrust of everyone. Political smooth talk. Beautiful. Alright, so in other words, she doesn't trust me. The bear gets alongside as he rolls his eyes. No matter how much I exasperate you, big guy, you still can't deny it. It's because you're in this very position that you're my only choice. Because I trust you, and I know you'll make the right decisions. I need you, Eric. As I look at the almost pleading expression on the prince's face, I can't help but watch to add a little caprices. So I cross my arms and raise my muzzle high with a falsely superior air. Perhaps if you offer me a kiss, I might be able to grant your request. What can I do? I love to be desired. However, when I see the stunned look on the bear's face, I sigh, grab his ears, and pull on them to bring him in for a long kiss. Maybe on doses in this sudden and perhaps a little wilder than expected kiss, and as we pull away, I wink at him, offering him my best smile. Of course, I'll be your knight in shining armor, my prince. The bear blinks, then starts laughing as he straightens up. Will I have to do this every time I have to ask you a favor? Maybe you will, or maybe the price will go up. Ambitious, Ambitious and horny. A pleasant warmth settles in my belly as our eyes meet, though the more time I spend with him, the more comforted I am in my choice. Your duties first, then we can discuss your ambitions. Of course, dear prince. And with that, I bow before heading straight for the castle goals. I must confess that I did not expect to head for such a place with a bouncy step every day as it surprises. But as I make my way through the corridors, I realize that it might not be very discreet to display such joy. So I take a timider pace while doing my best not to attract attention as I look for the stairs leading down into the underground. It's not exactly the sort of place where I like to spend my time, so I have no idea where the cells might be. However, I eventually find what appears to be a basement which is guarded by a horse in armor. It takes me a little while to put a plan together, and I think I've got just a thing in mind. Time for a bit of acting. Excuse me, Lord Eric. First I need to know if he's here. I would like to know if the Lord of Kimar is doing well. Swell as can be expected in there. Yeah, why? The prince asked me to check on him. Could you let me pass, please? I see there's some hesitation in the guard's eyes, but something tells me it won't take much to convince him. Usually, you have to do paperwork for this sort of thing. I know your food isn't great at the moment. I've heard a few of your colleagues complaining about it. How about I get you some goodies for the nobles' tables, They have Macadian salads, and they are absolutely raw. Oh, the one with the olives in it? Yeah, that sounds great. Go ahead, but you better go all out on the olives. He says. I give him a big grateful smile. Correcting a guard has never been so easy, but something tells me that he'd have been more worried if I told him about Simi. Once in the prison, I passed several cells that are filled with unfriendly-looking Africans. Some are glaring at me, while others are prostrate in the corner of their semi-bedroom. I wonder how long they've been here to be in this state, and I started to think that Simi also has to endure these conditions. Fortunately, after passing a few empty cells, I find her in hers, looking straight ahead with a pensive expression, but she doesn't seem to be in poor health. Simi? The defendant raises her head and looks at me up and down before approaching the bars. Who sent you? Maelbjorn, he told me that. Speak lower. The walls have ears here. The cells next to yours are empty. I think there is nothing to fear. Simi nods, then seems to relax momentarily. In that case, it means he's understood my message. A message? Turning myself in at the start of the council has assured that I have no information about what's going on in there. An enemy spy would do everything in his power to be present on this occasion. But on top of that, a lot of outside pressure was weighing on the royalty. The Merchants Guild was demanding accountability for the attack of the diplomatic caravan. They wanted to be able to resume trade without fear of Macad returning the favor. So by doing everything I did, I lifted the royal family's obligation to act against me while giving satisfaction to the disgruntled. All these elements put together surely aroused doubt within the prince. But why? Why all this show? The defendant smiles mischievously at me before returning to her straw mattress. From the outside, no one will know I surrendered, apart from the royal family and the ambassador of Kazal. So either the culprit will be somewhere from that circle, it was the case to knock will become the kingdom's target of choice, or they will think that I was arrested by a royal decree, not because I surrendered. This situation is entirely to our advantage, because if our culprit thinks I've been arrested, he'll also think that the kings and their son have taken the obvious bait he set for them. I try to make sense of the situation, but it must be obvious to the defendant that I can't find a conclusion to this riddle. It means our traitor is likely to underestimate them in the future, increasing the chances of a misstep on his part. This also gives me a headache, even if it does make sense eventually. I mean, you didn't become a spy master for nothing, but that's also what painted a target on my back. I'm a culprit of choice after all. Who would attack a cat if not the evil bird-hating spy? Her laughter echoes from her cell, and I can't help but flinch. How can she remain so calm in such a situation? But do you have any idea who it could be? I do have some suspicions. Maybe it could even be you, Eric. You have a tendency to stick your nose everywhere, especially where it doesn't belong. She turns an unnervingly hostile gaze towards me, and I can't help but stutter, and eventually she shows a whole row of her fangs that form a toothy grin. But if you are willing to lend an ear for the good of the kingdom, kiddo, I'd like to point you in NeveN and Astrid's direction. I think at least one of them is playing a game that could well prove deadly. Why them in particular? NeveN has been excessively discreet after opposing the kings during the last council. Not to mention that he already has a record as far as betrayal is concerned. And then a treasurer of the kingdom, he has access to a lot of information, maybe even as much as me. As for Astrid, she has been strangely supportive of the kings, given that she represents the nobility. Her, her overzealousness in bringing the two sides together could just as well be a means of concealing less honorable intentions. Especially as she probably didn't appreciate the treatment Lord Breas received during the tournament, this may have spurred her into taking action. That's when I remember that the ram must be nearby. I struggled to keep my curiosity from getting the better of me, even though I'd like to see if he's been treated properly by the guards. Before you go, can I ask you a small favor? Looks like there are a lot of small favors to fill today. I should start getting paid. It depends on what kind of favor. I'd like you to check on Rowan, if possible. He must be worried sick by now, but you'll have to be discreet and not miss the discussion we've just had. I like him, but he's the talkative type. He might jeopardize the plan if he knew too much. And what am I supposed to tell him? I'm sure you'll find the right words. Even with all the good in the world, I can't help but sigh. An avatar, a messenger, a spy. Clearly, I'm anything but a bar in this castle. Maybe I should sing while I talk to them, just so they remember what my purpose is. Well, I guess it'll keep my mind occupied at least. I don't really want to think about the whole avatar thing. The denial of their arrival will do for now. Alright, but don't let it become a habit. Thanks, Eric. It means a lot to me, no matter how trivial it may seem. On that note, it's time for me to enjoy a good rest on a luxurious bed. Take care, Simmy. Deep down, I hope this situation doesn't last. And thus he's holding up as well as he's trying to let on someone her age isn't meant to live in such an uncomfortable place. With these final thoughts for Simmy, I walk away with a heavy heart, preparing to lie once more as my footsteps guide me towards the Royal Guard barracks. Normally, I have headed back to Maelbjorn first, but it turns out I'm getting tired of walking through the corridors, and Rowan is closer than the princess. As I enter the room, I'm surprised to see Rowan standing there alone, throwing knives at a target with a brooding look. When he becomes aware of my presence, he raises his hand without so much as a smile. Bad day, huh? You said it. As he continues to throw his knives, I pull up a chair to settle beside him and smile reassuringly. I need to find the right words without saying too much. I took the initiative to go and see Simmy. She's doing well. For the moment, that's only a half a lie. I really liked the old fennec, and checking on her was important to me, even if it wasn't my initiative. But I'm having trouble discerning Rowan's expression. At first it looks like he wants to smile, but then he sinks back into total apathy. That's a good thing, I suppose. But how did he get by? I'm not allowed to see her. Oh, you know, a few promises to a hungry guard and a bit of deceit. I guess you look harmless to everyone, and the fact that you're not related to her helps too. I'd rather put it down to my natural charm, but I guess your explanation makes sense too. While putting on a false air of pride, I wink at him in the hope of bringing a smile back to his face, but it doesn't work. He concentrates again on the target, which he tilts every time, but with fluctuating accuracy. Wonder he's a little drunk, and I have to say it worries me given that he seemed relatively professional up to that point. Come on, Eric, he clearly needs a little support. You know, she's the one who asked me to check up on you. She's worried about you. This time the knife misses the target and bounces dangerously off the stone wall of the barracks. She's worried about me, really? Rowan's voice is trembling, but I don't know if it's sadness or anger that's affecting him the most. If she cared, she wouldn't have done what she did. Maybe she has a good reason. I don't have all the ins and outs of the story yet. I know enough about her to understand why she would have betrayed the kingdom. I must admit I'm curious, and maybe it'll do him good to get it all out of his head. And why do you think she would do that? The snow leopard looks down for a moment before placing his knives on the table beside him. Sometimes I get the impression that she and Odu are still in Makad. It's as if what they suffer there is holding them prisoner. Excuse me, but who's Odu again? My father-in-law, one of Simi's sons. Oh, is that the hooded fennec who always accompanies her? That's him, alright. He used to be a spy, but since his daughter is my wife, he's been Simi's bodyguard. It's generally more peaceful. He can stick around and come by to see us from time to time. At least I have a name to put on my savior now. But you said she was one of her sons? She has another, but he's on missing out of the kingdom. Oh, Makad. Rowan gives a long sigh before sliding a finger over the blade of one of the knives thoughtfully. Confidential. I should have known. Everything's confidential when it comes to Simi. Anyway, I can't understand what she and her sons may have been through, but I'd like to build something here. Our common future is in Frostfang. And sometimes I know it's hard to hear, but I feel like he's holding us all in the past. It sounds like he's trying to come to terms with Simi's treachery in his own way. It's hard not being able to tell him the truth. I feel more like I'm pressing on the wound than helping him. Maybe I should change the subject instead. Say, why do you become a guard, if you don't mind me talking about it? Rowan shrugs and finally sets his gaze on me. Good pay, steady work, and it's not too dangerous. Not to mention the fact that it lets me work for true legends. You mean the kings? Yeah, the kings are war heroes for sure, but Gilead is a living legend too. Maybe it's more local, and he's still relatively young compared to them, but he's famous. You see him fight, you know what he's capable of. The feline's gaze loses gloom to practically burst with 1,000 lights as he speaks of his captain. The admiration in his voice was almost tangible. I have to admit, it was impressive. If I could, I would have bet on Tanaka yet. But I had no idea Gilead was such a popular figure. He's so Gilead. Yeah, it's part of the charm. The grouchy masked panther seems to be a crowd pleaser. It's true that people love a good mystery. Besides, he's an example to us all as a warrior. Rowan sighs at length as he gradually relaxes in his chair. I'd like to be like him one of these days. There's so much admiration in the guard's voice that I find it sweet. I'd love to have an admirer like him. I'm sure you can compete with him. Your little fight was a lot closer than he let on. That's only because he didn't fight seriously. Trust me, he kicks my ass if we fight for real. Even though I like to joke with him that I could beat him. And tell me, do you ever want to know what was under his mask or under his armor? He gives me a mocking look, and I must admit that it makes me laugh. Well, at least it looks like he's regaining a bit of his edge. His mask, you idiot. I must be the only one in the whole kingdom who doesn't want to know. I'm at the point where it's part of his legend. Is Gilead without a mask still Gilead? Oh, come on, not even a little look underneath. You lack curiosity, Rowan. I don't know. When you dig too deep, you also want the rest to see the reality beneath the legend. Sometimes it's not what you want it to be. And distinguishes a note of melancholy in his voice, and I wonder if he is also thinking of Simi as he says these words. Regardless, I take the initiative and place my hand on his arm as I try to be as comforting as possible. I personally think it's the African that makes the legend, not his armor. He'd be a lot less mythical if he fought in his underwear. That answer catches me off guard, and I can't help but giggle along with Rowan. So much for my attempt to have a serious conversation. But at least the snow leopard looks better than he did before I came in that's the victory. Like Rowan, I'd love to stay a little longer, but the prince might get worried if I don't come back. Oh, His Majesty requires your personal presence. Sounds like you two are getting along pretty well. Well, no, Eric, don't say what you have in mind. The truth is, I'm the one who asked to see him. I have dance lessons to give him. That's probably one of the worst lies I've ever fabricated. The fact that it wasn't necessary in the first place makes it even worse. Dance lessons? I realized he was very ungraceful, so there we go. I see that Rowan does everything to keep his seriousness but fails to conceal it. It's probably because we are talking about the prince and he doesn't dare to burst out laughing. I'm counting on you to keep this confidential, of course. Obviously. Crap, it's definitely not going to stay between us. Anyway, I'm off. Take care of yourself. You too, and thanks for stopping by. I give him one last ring before heading back in the direction of the prince's office. I think I'm going to spend the whole day walking up and down this castle. I never visited it as much as I did today. Fortunately, I'm beginning to feel at home in the royal ring. The entrance to the prince's office is even starting to have a cozy feeling about it. Gillan isn't there this time, but the prince is definitely present when I push open the already ajar door. Eric, so what did she tell you? Let me settle down, will you? I pull up a chair and rest in it as I sigh heavily. You could have thought about compacting your castle a bit and making fewer floors. It's a real pain to get through. This place is much older than anyone living in it. We're not responsible for its layout. Not to mention that it's a stronghold, not just a castle, so it makes sense to make it easy to defend and complicated to get through. The bear smiles at me as he closes the door behind me, then urges me to continue with an insistent look. It's just as you suspected. Everything was planned. From what I understand, she wants the real traitor to think he's succeeded in his scheme, and she's got two guesses as to who that might be. Astra and NeveN, she's mentioned them to me in the past, yes. I stand speechless for a moment as a bunch of insults run through my head. Did I really go through all these corridors to hear the two of you repeat things you already knew? We were at the Sutton stage, but I guess it's time for action now. She wants me to snoop around them. The prince scowls as he loses his gaze to the window. I can't ask you to do that. It's too dangerous. Hey, you got me into this whole situation, so I'm staying in it. Besides, I'm doing this for the people I care about, especially you. I don't intend to give up, especially if it might involve my well-being. After all, if the kingdom falls, we'll fall with it. It's more than blind loyalty. It's also a matter of survival. But this is different. NeveN and Astra have power. They represent more than just themselves. And really starting to wonder who holds the power here. From the moment we do, with the slightest misjudgment, even one wrong sentence, everything can turn upside down very quickly. Politics is just a balancing act. Absolute power doesn't exist, at least not the way we envisage the future. But without a lot of evidence, Maelbjorn looks down before nodding. We'd all like to avoid that eventuality. The last civil war left a bitter taste in the mouths of those still alive to remember it. Or those who read history books, I presume. I smiled at the prince, knowing full well that's probably how he knows about it. After all, he's too young to have lived through it. Unfortunately, not everyone is interested in history. Those are the ones who most likely to repeat the mistakes of the past. Should I feel targeted? On the other hand, I'm joking, but on the other, I'm also thinking that a lot of people, just like me, didn't have access to the education promised by the royalty. No, and that's why I'm not thinking about my reign only from a military perspective. I'd like to bring education to the masses. That's something my fathers weren't able to achieve, even though they wished to. There are so many more direct threats that it's hard to focus on what's really important, our future. But soon you won't have the excuse of illiteracy to escape my history lessons. You have to stay alongside me, willingly or not. Maelbjorn lets out a little laugh, but I have to say his idea is charming as much as it amuses me. You know what? I'll take your word for it. You'll teach me everything you know. And in return, what do I get? A clever bunny? I already have him. He's knowledgeable in many things other than history. My ears perk up and I flash my best grin while applying a lecherous note to every word I form next. Really? And in what is he knowledgeable exactly? Oh, no. I can see exactly where you're going with this. Oh, come on. Like you didn't know where you were taking this conversation. Maybe I did, but don't you dare tell me you're not enjoying this little game. Oh, it amuses me, but don't expect to win. That's all I'm saying. As I say these words, I stretch out my leg under the desk to rub it against the bears, and then continue the conversation innocently, and it looks like Maelbjorn is trying to do the same. It's the same I have to fulfill my new responsibilities as a spy. I'll have to leave you with your papers and your thoughts. This time it is a prince who imitates me by making himself as tempting as possible, and I must admit that it amuses me greatly to see him depart from his usual behavior. I'm sure we share some of those thoughts. Too bad we can't put them into practice. He winks at me, and I can't help laughing as I stand up. I love to continue this little game, but something tells me that having him wait will make things a little more interesting in the near future. The problem is, it's also frustrating for me. Anyway, it's time for me to pay a visit to our dear. Where exactly is Edwin's role? Maelbjorn struggles to regain his seriousness as he clears his throat to resume his usual serious tone. He's officially treasurer, but let's just say he does more than the job usually entails. Good, I want to see the treasurer then. Just as I'm halfway to the door, the prince suddenly raises his voice. Wait, I have something on my mind. Oh, when I turn around, I see the bear somewhat embarrassed. Am I scaring the prince so much that he doesn't dare tell me what's on his mind? He looks rather cute with that look on his face, but I offer him a smile to encourage him to continue. You know that idea you had to go out irresponsibly, as you like to say? Would you like us to go out tomorrow, you and I? There are still a few days of partying left in honor of my birthday, and I'd like to get out in town. I can't help but let my face glow at the thought, but reality quickly catches up to me. I'd love to, but security might be an issue, wouldn't it? Gillant will be busy elsewhere. As for the rest of the guards, I have a plan to get out without attracting their attention. I have to admit that kidnapping a prince wasn't on my list of things to do now, but I can always add that to the list of things that will probably get me killed eventually. Don't worry, you won't be involved, and at once the kings will reprimand me. In the prince's voice, I seem to read a certain boredom towards his treatment as a daughter father's. I can hardly say I understand the situation. It is frustrating because I'd like to help Maelbjorn with that. Look, you know what? I trust your plan. Shall we talk about it tomorrow? Real pleasure. Good luck with Edwin, and be careful, please. Those last words sound like a plea to my ears. I try to understand how an old squirrel could be dangerous to me. Now, remember, he's probably got his butt sitting on a shitload of gold. I exit the office with one last bow to the prince before scurrying off to where exactly? Damn it. There's no way I'm going to cross the whole castle along and wide this time. I'm going to ask for directions. So I head back to Maelbjorn's office, who smiles when he sees me. That was quick. Where's Edwin's office? South wing, second floor. If you see pages running around with bundles of parchments in their hands in the corridor, you won't be far from his lair. Thank you. And this time I'm off for good, while mentally preparing myself to trick an accountant. In other words, a difficult task awaits me. As I climb the stairs, I already passed several servants hurrying up with pouched documents. This is probably the busiest wing of the castle, and it's surprising given that the one dedicated to the nobles is teeming with chattering Anthracans all day long. With any luck, it also means I'll go unnoticed amidst all the mayhem. Not that I particularly need it, but I think the fewer questions I'm asked about being here, the better off I'll be. While I'm lost in thought, one of the castle servants nearly bumps into me, and his stack starts to tilt dangerously. Excuse me. Oh no, he doesn't react. I've got to sing something and fast. I really don't have the time to come up with a fancy rhyme. With these graceful words, hastily uttered, my brain lights up and I freeze the top of the pile in time. The servant continues on his way as if nothing had happened, and the Anthracans around me seem too caught up in what they're doing to see the papers floating magically above them. I don't know whether I should be happy that I pulled it off or vexed that no one is paying attention, probably both at the same time. That said, it gives me a unique opportunity. I get under the pile and release my power so that it falls right into my arms. Then, once my vision of the servant crumbling under the papers finished, I follow the line to the room that seems to be at the heart of all this activity. And if I thought the corridor was already quite active, this place is another notch above. A good 30 Anthracans are busy calculating and counting and redirecting servants to other parts of the castle. I thought the heart of the kingdom was in the throne room, but this is where the true magic happens. Almost literally in some cases, given that the paper flies by itself, probably under the influence of an air brand. And that's when I realized that whoever is responsible for these whirling documents is also who I'm looking for, NeveN. He's far too busy to notice me, so I'll have to get as close as I can. And I must emphasize that this is a challenge in itself, given that wave after wave of administrative staff drown me out as soon as a piece of paper drops. My gods, what I wouldn't give to be a bear right now. I crossed a few of them for good measure. I wonder if that's what Maelbjorn wants to do with Focus Eric. And finally, as I'm struggling to breathe, I find a gap in the middle of that endless wall of bodies, only to find myself nose to nose with the squirrel who blinks and utters incomprehensive as a rat's tablet flying nearby falls heavily on a hyena's head. Alice can't save everyone, I guess. I expected this accident to attract attention, but the other servants barely take the time to get around the knocked out Anthracan. I'm sure he even gets stepped on occasionally. What are you doing here? The squirrel's nervously sizing me up and down as his bony fingers close over the flaps of his furry coat. A courtesy call, and there are a couple of things I'd like to discuss. The treasurer grimaces, but eventually he beckons me to follow him and leads me to an office at the back of the room, away from prying ears. Do I give you the impression that I have time for trifles? I have to admit that I didn't expect everything to be so organized. I notice the squirrel's huge bushy tail twitching behind him, and I wonder if that's a sign of appreciation for what I've just said. I better figure out quickly how he's reacting. I may need it. Indeed, the kings are the facade of the kingdom, while here we are its foundations. Well, he's not hiding his pride, to say the least, but perhaps it's well earned. I don't exactly have the skills or the inclination to discuss accounting, but going on his turf might guarantee me more positive reactions to the questions I have for him. I've heard that the kingdom is recovering from the economic disaster that was the Civil War. I imagine you have something to do with that. I managed to elicit a slight smile from the squirrel, who seems to be finding new youth in this conversation. He might rarely be complimented on his achievements. That's what being in the cell of the kings is like, I suppose. It's true that our finances are in good shape, but business could be even better. Really? Is it confidential or not? Oh no, it's common knowledge. The treasurer walks over to a teapot and holds it out in my direction. Would you like some? Why not? He serves us in little porcelain cups, beautifully decorated in Macedonian style, and the sweet smell of raspberry infusion rises to my nose. Once we are comfortably tucked into the cushiest armchairs in the castle, the squirrel picks up where he left off. You must have heard about the rampant banditry in the country. Some of our trading partners are complaining about it. I suppose safe roads are beneficial to everyone in this case. Unfortunately, it's harder to enforce than it sounds. I should be able to bounce off that with something to do with the trader. I imagine that the recent attack on the Macedonian diplomatic caravan isn't helping business either. Did it affect trade with Macad? Not a single reaction from the squirrel. In fact, he's rather busy blowing on his tea, which seems a little too hot for his liking. Not really. These sorts of incidents are more common than one might think. You'd be surprised how often money overlooks ethical issues. We tolerate having to trade with a slaver empire, and on their side, they turn a blind eye to other issues happening here. The squirrel is finally sipping his tea with the tips of his lips, and I must admit that such pragmatism gives me the chills. But I need to try something more personal. This won't do. You seem almost jaded. Do you ever get used to this kind of compromise? Eastman puts down his cup while letting out a small laugh that conceals a clear note of lassitude. Some people get used to it, I suppose, just like some people have always lived in compromise. Others live in a world where good and evil exist, a world where heroic knights save damsels in distress from some horrible monster. Personally, I live in a world where knights are paid in cold hard gold. And if they don't get their money, they'll slit your throat for someone who will fund them. Well, that's a bit of a downer. But I've got what I want. He's clearly passionate about this, so if I've got a chance of perceiving that something's wrong, it's now. That's why you suggest locking me up, isn't it? You have nothing against me, but you don't believe in providential heroes. For you, I'm an asset as much as a threat. You know neither my allegiance nor my motives. Wrinkles of annoyance formed on the squirrel's muzzle, as if someone had suddenly pinched a nerve. Well, I'm afraid that, contrary to what the kingdom was trying to make you think, Frostfang is full of opportunists instead of the noble heroes that populate the childish legends dear to the bards. It's my turn to take things personally, but I don't intend to be pushed around. I know this is going to sound a bit silly and naive, but I don't think our stories are meant to represent a reality. They inspire. They push Africans to realize their full potential. So I know it's less concrete and maybe even less directly useful than your numbers and gold, but a lot of kids dream of a better world because of our tales, however futile they may be. The treasurer doesn't seem that moved by my speech. He simply sweeps the air in front of him with his hand before looking me straight in the eye. Since you like it so much, I got a little story for you myself. Do you know how I got here? By opportunism? Eric, calm down. If you provoke him too much, he'll shut down. That said, and much to my surprise, he laughed so hard that his old bones seemed to collapse in on themselves with every jolt. You can say that, yes, but please dare to tell me that opportunism is not within us all. Anyway, you see, when I was your age, my father was killed in a battle against Macad. My mother told me that he died a hero, fighting an entire army with just a few hundred men. Well, this is off to a good start. I have a feeling this story is going to exude happiness. After that, when I was due to inherit our ancestral lands, my uncle seized them before selling my mother and me as hostages to King of Phosphane. I take it that was the king who was then overthrown by Lus and Aeon. King Abelus himself indeed. And what use was it to him to have you as hostages? You served as a guarantee that my uncle would follow the king loyally as the new lord of these lands. Obviously, he didn't care about our survival, but the king didn't know that. Once again, NeveN sweeps the air in front of him with the back of his hand. Anyway, you're probably wondering how one becomes treasurer, starting from such a bad position. I have to admit that you've sparked my curiosity. Well, just as you guessed, pure opportunism. The day Lus and Aeon arrived, when they entered Phosphane with their army, they could have found the castle gates sealed. The siege would have lasted months, if not years. We had the supplies to last a long time, and brands strong enough to counter the onslaught of their powers. As he recounts his story, which I'm now consuming with the utmost curiosity, NeveN gradually leans in with a falsely devious air. But the night before they arrived, when their presence was but a rumor on the horizon, I sabotaged the hinges and made it so that the door could no longer be closed. It was a most vile act of treason in the eyes of the ruler, obviously, but he didn't have time to realize it until it was too late. So as a result, Lus and Aeon rewarded you with the position of treasurer. This time the scroll's laugh barely leaves his throat, and he starts coughing as he bends in half before straightening up. I wouldn't exactly call it a reward. They've given me something to keep me busy while making sure I fade from history. The heroes of their legends are the warriors who came through those gates and slaughtered the people who lived behind them. The one who kept them open doesn't exist, because I remain a traitor even to those I helped. The scroll doesn't even hide his resentment anymore, but I can understand him being bitter if he was really treated that way, even if I have my doubts about that. I don't think if they see you as a traitor, they wouldn't have put you in that position otherwise. Oh, they don't say it openly, of course, but I can see that they want to keep me in the saddles. The treasurer pauses, and I can see that his gaze is wandering. I take the opportunity to drink my tea, which is a little too cold now. Anyway, I didn't do it because it was the right thing to do. I did it because I had something to gain and nothing to lose. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. I would do the same thing today, knowing the consequences. But I don't expect anyone to put flowers in my grave when I die. And that's just fine. I don't like flowers anyway. As sad as this conclusion is, I can't help smiling at the little note of humor NeveN adds at the end. Whatever you think of it, you're probably a hero in some people's eyes. Maybe the approach wasn't the most heroic, but the result is there. Then again, I suppose heroic deeds can sometimes come from selfish motives. From what I've heard about the previous lords, they at least partially deserve what happened to them. NeveN doesn't exactly look convinced by my little speech, to say the least. The result is all that matters. In the end, fewer people died because of what you did. That's a nice way of looking at it, but I'm not trying to play down my betrayal. I've lived with it for years, and it no longer disturbs my sleep. But I must admit that it feels good to be able to talk about it. It's a rare opportunity, so I thank you for it. The squirrel is far from being who I imagine him to be. Besides, I admire his honesty, even if it doesn't change me suspicious about him. After all, if he betrayed once, I suppose a second attempt is a possibility. But I'd like to think that's behind us, as Maelbjorn likes to remind me. This kingdom is based on the concept of second chances. It's been a pleasure, Even if we don't share the same vision of the world, I find it interesting to be able to discuss it. Good, but don't take this as an invitation to chat regularly. I've got far too much work ahead of me. Off we go now. Perfect. He got so carried away with his story that he even forgot why I was there in the first place. The less he delves into my lies, the better off I'll be. Good day, Edwin. See you at the next council meeting. That's right, good day to you. And with those words, I leave with a lighter spirit. However, as I walk through the corridors, I catch a faint glimmer of sunlight through a window. I must have spent more time wandering the castle than I thought. The day is already beginning to draw to a close. Yeah, I'll probably have time to speak to Astrid tomorrow before I go out in town with Maelbjorn. And I hope she won't gut me on the spot when she sees me. This is a possibility I keep in the corner of my mind. To be continued. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this chapter. If you want more information about NeveN, feel free to follow us on Twitter. We also have a Discord allowing you to chat among community members. Finally, if you would like to support our project, we also have a Patreon that offers you a series of benefits, such as builds 2 weeks in advance, but also unique stories about the characters of NeveN. If you like the VN, please also feel free to rate us on Itch.io. It will help us a lot. Once again, a big thanks to all of you, and see you soon. So that was chapter 5 for Maelbjorn. So Simi had decided to sacrifice her position to I don't know, I forgot what, but anyway, she's doing that for the kingdom, and the whole thing about the Macadian enclave being killed. She's decided to declare herself responsible for that. But I think she's doing that as some kind of distraction from somebody else trying to get Eric, I think. One of the avatars, I guess. But anyway. So, when she declared herself to be responsible, I knew it wasn't true. So, and it looks like Maelbjorn was no, he wasn't in on it, but I guess he even knew about it. I guess he even, okay, I'm not entirely sure, but anyway, it's a little complicated, and I wasn't entirely focusing on it as I was reading it. So, anyway, about Maelbjorn, it looks like they're going to go outside together tomorrow, or the next day anyway. The next day they'll go out together on the streets of Frostfang instead of always being in the castle tower. So I wonder how that's going to be. I mean, he's going to be out there in his armor as usual, or is he going to be in different clothes? I don't know. And Eric, he is certainly getting used to his powers now. By singing and rhyming, he is able to use his powers. Like when he moved those guards out of his way, when he went to inside the chambers, inside the council chambers to warn the kings about the dream he had, or when he was looking for Edwin he bumped into members of the staff for Edwin, and they were carrying a tall stack of papers. It was about to collapse, and Eric used his powers to prevent it from collapsing. So he's using his powers very well, and he's more knowledgeable about them now. And I like that he's able to at least use his powers by doing what he loves. I mean, he may not like the power he has, but at least he gets to use something that he likes by doing something that he likes. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't like the power itself, but he at least gets to do something he likes to operate that power. And his power being able to control time, he gets to sing to activate that power. And we got to learn more about NeveN and Frostfang's past. So that story that NeveN taught about, it further confirms that he's a person that's really all about himself, and he'll portray people to get what he wants. If there's an opportunity, if there's something he can benefit, he'll portray people to get what he wants. So I like that part where we got to learn more about NeveN. I certainly don't trust him. And next time we'll get to see, well, in the next chapter for Maelbjorn, chapter 6, we'll get to see Astrid, and perhaps we'll learn even more from her about her past, just like with NeveN just now. So that's all for Maelbjorn's chapter 5. I assume next month will be chapter 5 for Tanakh, and then afterwards Vakad will be last for chapter 5, like the other chapters. You know, first is Aket, then Maelbjorn, then Tanakh, then Vakad, and then afterwards to go into the new chapter. So thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.